Hi, I'm Astral Marmot, and today I want to talk about something really interesting: boredom. So, what is boredom? It's not having nothing to do, as anyone with ADHD can tell you. It's when the environment around you or the options available to you fail to stimulate your mind. And it really is fascinating that in the middle of a fast paced and complex activity we enjoy, we can still end up being understimulated. I've seen this question show up a couple of times now. What do I do if I, the game master, get bored with my own game? Now, what I'm not talking about is when everyone is bored. That might sound like the worst of all possible scenarios, but it's also the easiest to address. Just change it up. It might be more difficult agreeing on how to change it up, but we'll have to talk about healthy table communication on another day. You got a lot of options, though. Run a pre-made adventure, play a different game system, maybe even let one of the other players take over and try GMing on for a size while you relax. Point is, if everyone agrees it's time for a change, make a change and don't take it personally, because changing it up is how we grow. What I want to talk about in this video is boredom as a singular experience of the game master, when you, the GM, are bored but the other players are still engaged. There are a lot of different ways this can show up, so for the sake of conversation, let's break them down into three categories: momentary, situational, and campaign-wide. Momentary boredom happens during a session when you stop paying attention to the table. We've all done it. Maybe the party is spending 15 minutes exhaustively circling around the same plan for the boss room, and you know that plan is going to fall to crap the moment it comes into contact with the encounter. The forward momentum of the game is halted and the conversation is going in circles and you start to drift off. Momentary boredom is dangerous because it causes us to lose track of the moment, and that's easy enough for me to do when I'm not bored and just juggling too many things behind the screen. Situational boredom happens on a higher level. Maybe you put a ton of work into making this 5-phase dungeon and the party is still stuck in phase 1. Or you're running a module that goes from level 7 to 11 and the level 11 encounters are really cool but the party is still at level 8. Or the party is excitedly preparing for a journey by sea and you just want them to get there so they can finally meet the Mad King. There are so many cool things ahead, and you want all those cool things to be happening right now, not some undetermined number of sessions in the future. Sometimes, even when the other players are having fun, you've just been in one place too long. Campaign-wide boredom is obviously the biggest and in some ways the most daunting. If you're bored with the campaign as the whole, one possibility is you feel stuck in something and either can't or don't know how to change it. This could be anything from feeling stuck in the narrative, unhappy with where the story is and is going. You could be working from a module and feel stuck with content you don't like but is necessary for the narrative to progress. This is also where the dreaded new shiny syndrome can attack. You're running your noir mystery campaign and then you see a post on Reddit about someone's epic space pirate battle and now you feel stuck in your campaign's conceit. Or you could be fine with the conceit and the world and the narrative, but feel stuck in the system you're using to run the game in the first place. Okay, there's a lot to break down here, but it's clear boredom can show up almost anywhere and for a lot of different reasons. And that's because boredom is not the actual problem. It's a symptom of a host of different problems. When you catch yourself being bored, your brain has informed you that the environment you're in does not stimulate you. In some ways, that's good news, or at least news. You know that the way out is the application of some kind of stimulus to the environment, and as game masters, we have a lot of control over the environment. There's no way I can cover every form of table boredom in a short video, but we can take a look at each of these categories and see how to triage the real problem that your boredom is signaling. Momentary boredom is often a problem of pacing, and how to pace your game well is an entire topic unto itself. Generally, if the party is going around in circles about a plan, it is time for you, the GM, to transition the scene forward, and you can do that in a number of different ways, most commonly by introducing a sense of urgency, a ticking clock, a call for help from another room, go all Minds of Moria and make the dungeon run at them. You know, stimulus. But you can't solve every lull in this story with 1d8 goblins with a type K loot distribution, and the push into a new scene doesn't have to be a stick. The other way to reinvigorate a limping narrative is to reconnect it back to the overarching story of the campaign. As the party debates which path they should take, the rogue catches a whiff of sulfur, the very same smell that pervaded their childhood village when it was burned down by parties unknown. Now the party has a positive draw toward the next scene, one that's connected to their backstory and presumably to the overall story. By reinvesting yourself into the story as a whole, you reinvest yourself in the moment and provide the stimulus needed to kickstart the story's engine. Momentary boredom is also a great opportunity to do a physical check-in. Do you need to use the restroom? Get a snack? Stand up and move? Drink some water? There are multiple studies that show that people with ADHD think better when we have exercised or have been in motion. What we see as hyperactivity is in many cases not a lack of interest, but an earnest attempt to focus by introducing a physical stimulus. I actually prefer to GM standing up if at all possible. Just shifting back and forth on my feet keeps me more focused than when I'm GMing from my computer chair. It's always okay to take 3 and move around. I find it's necessary to keep myself engaged. Situational boredom, when you're ready to move on in a larger narrative sense rather than in a scene-to-scene kind of way, can also stem from pacing problems, but I think it has more to do with patience. I hesitate to even call this boredom because there's something anticipatory about it. It's not just that you're no longer invested in the current scenario, you're actively being pulled towards something in the future that is precluded by the current scenario. I can honestly say few things have taught me the painful necessity of patience better than being a game master. Right now I'm running a module for the first time in my GMing life, and it is murder knowing about cool encounters that won't come up for another several levels. When I homebrew, I don't have encounters granularly planned further than, at most, 2 sessions out. Knowing what happens entire levels ahead makes me want to run those encounters now, and it's an object lesson in patience. But it's also a lesson in planning. In the example I gave earlier of a dungeon with 5 phases, one way to set yourself up to stay interested over the life of a big dungeon is by allowing the players to trigger each phase in any order. Sure, you know what all the phases are, but if you plan a smart dungeon, the order the players choose to approach it will have dynamic consequences that you won't be able to predict. What happens if the party encounters the kobold faction and gets their sad backstory before the sad backstory of their mortal enemies, the deep gnomes? And while not every campaign is a dungeon crawl, and non-linearity isn't for every dungeon, all dungeons and campaigns can be dynamic and responsive to the player's choices. You kind of have to plan for serendipity, leave space for the party to set the path, and you're more likely to stay engaged as they walk it. But what about when the whole campaign is boring you? First, let's talk about new shiny syndrome. Being drawn to something new doesn't mean there's anything inherently wrong with your campaign. Comparison is the thief of joy, and your noir murder doesn't feel as swashbuckling as that other guy's campaign on Reddit because it's not. That's not what your campaign is about. Fortunately, popular systems like Pathfinder and D&D are highly accommodating of changes in story, narrative, even genre. Most games, certainly not all, but most games can be massaged to incorporate intergenre elements. Perhaps a group of recently arrived pirates holds a vital clue to the mystery and the party has to spend a session dueling and cajoling the pirates into giving up the information. These systems in particular are flexible enough to allow you to scratch those itches within the existing context of your campaign versus setting it all on fire and starting over. When you encounter a new shiny, ask yourself, what do I like about this new shiny? Can I incorporate it into my existing game? If not, can I hold on to it until this campaign ends? If you answered yes to the last 2 questions, add the idea to a dedicated idea space in your organization system. We are creative beings, always thinking of new ideas and concepts. Have a home for those ideas to live, and take them out and review them from time to time to keep them alive. If you answered no to either question, well, now you know it's time for a change. But sometimes it's not a new shiny. Sometimes you've just lost interest, period. Nothing else is drawing you. You're just understimulated and want something new, even if you don't know what that something is. If you're running a module and have total knowledge of the direction of the arc, even if you don't know its exact shape, you may well conclude that the narrative is not one that will ultimately be fun for your table, even if they're enjoying it in the moment. Or, and this is important, you may conclude that the level of work you as a GM would have to put in to make the module fun is more than you're willing to do. In a case like that, it's time to talk to your table and express the concerns you have. It might be hard to explain if they like the campaign so far, but it is completely valid for you to say, running this module will not be fun for me in the long run, and I would like to run something else. If you have a supportive and trusting table, and if you don't, get you one, they will understand and work with you to come up with another solution. If it's your homebrew world you're bored with, you have a great deal more freedom to reinvigorate and shake up the narrative than someone locked into a module. When I find that the narrative of the game is starting to drag, I often follow the same advice I gave for Momentary Boredom and reconnect the story back to the PCs. This is a great time to bring someone's backstory into the foreground, giving them the opportunity to drive the narrative for a couple of sessions. Remember, this is their game too. You don't have to be the sole curator of fun. You may also ultimately decide that changing the story enough to re-engage you is more effort than you can give. But before you put the kibosh on your campaign, see what happens when you hand the reins to your players and give them more narrative power. More often than not, they will drive the story in a direction you did not anticipate, and you will find yourself awakened to and excited about your campaign all over again. Thanks for watching this video. Boredom was a weirdly interesting thing to think about, and I'm grateful to the people who suggested it. I want to give an extra special shout out to the channel's first 2 monthly supporters, Justrada and Joshua Barnapal. Thank you for believing in this channel and helping me to make it a reality. If you would like to join the ranks of these amazing people and support the channel, either with a one-time donation or on a monthly basis, follow the link in the description to ko-fi.com/Astral Marmot. For now, thank you all for being here. Please like and subscribe before you go get a glass of water, and may every second of your games capture all of your attention. And unclench your jaw.